Welcome to the Systems for Business podcast. I'm your host, Ben Slater. And look, it's no secret that I love reading books. You probably noticed I'm always mentioning certain books and certain things that have had an impact on me. That led me to write my first book, The Business Owner's Guide to Profit. And if you haven't yet read that, definitely go and grab it. You can grab it for free over at benslatersbook.com. And I'm in the process right now of writing my second book, which will be called Systems for Scale, where I'm going to be deepening and expanding on a lot of the philosophies and principles that I shared in the first book. So if you loved that or you haven't got that yet, go and get it. But if you did love it, you'll probably love the second one as well. So stay tuned for that. Now, today I want to share 10 business books that have had a big impact on me. I think there's multiple ways to learn things in life, but I think one of the most powerful is through the successes, failures, and principles that other people have created and experienced in their life. And I think it's an amazing way to level up. You can buy books from billionaires. This is a crazy thing in business. There's people that have mastered business so well and wealth building so well that they've created multi-billion-dollar empires, and you can go and read their most intimate thoughts and ideas. That to me has always been something really exciting. When I finished school, and I obviously went into a bit of a downswing there for a few years, drugs and alcohol related, and wasn't really going anywhere in life. The thing that actually pulled me out and gave me hope for my life was realizing that I could tap into this almost infinite feeling resource from some of the smartest people that had ever lived. And I just became obsessed with that. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of business books over my time. I've got so many at home. I actually miss them right now because I'm not with those books. I like to have them. I can put my hands on them. So look, I hope you enjoy this episode. It's a little bit different from what we usually do here, but here is part one of a two-part series, because I'm going to be sharing another part series next week for you on a different style of book I think you'll love as well. So if you do love it, reach out, let me know. I would really appreciate to hear from you. And look, if it really connects with you, if you could leave us a review, that'd be awesome. Let's get into the episode. Today we're covering 10 of my favorite and most impactful business books. I've chosen all of these really specifically for a reason. And look, you're going to pick up really quickly that a lot of these are sales books. And the reason for that, to get your business to seven figures, I really believe that sales is such a big piece of this. It is so important that someone is holding that sales pillar. And every single day, you really have to own it. And if that's you as the business leader or your business partner, someone high up in the business has to really hold this. So 10 books I'm going to go through now across the pillars of, I'm going to leave out mindset, because what I'm going to do, I'll do this as part of a series. So this specific podcast, I'm going to focus on business strategy, sales, marketing, profits, team building, operations, product, those sorts of things. And I'll do another one specifically on mindset, philosophy, and those sort of things, because I think these are two complementary opposite pieces of business. You really want to master both of them, but they're very different. They're very, very different. There's some people that are very good at one, not so good at the other. So you really want to master both. I believe this is the golden mean of business. Now, the first book on my list here is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And the reason I chose this book is because what he talks about in this book is you're either a 0 or you're a 1. You're either creating a market or you're participating in a market. So you're either producing a linear growth. And I think he makes some really good points in the book. This was my favorite perspective in the book. He wrote that when you're just improving a product, so for example, let's say you've got Facebook and Instagram, let's say. So very, very similar. Facebook was there and then Instagram. It's an improvement. It's not a 1. It's not going from 0 to 1. Where he says going to 1 is like going from a petrol car to an electric car. So it's an innovation. And he said that as a business, you should really try to devote yourself to innovations. And you've probably seen there's so many businesses that are just carbon copies of other businesses. And they do the same things, they get the same results, maybe marginally better, marginally worse. It's all very linear. And I really love this geometric perspective of innovation when it comes to product, who you're serving, how you're serving people. And look, this is just a really important way to think about your product. And this comes first for me is what innovations are you bringing to the market? Why are you unique, empowering? What is your end goal? What's the vision? I think that's one of the best books that I've personally read on that. And look, Peter Thiel, he's done that. He's done this in multiple different areas. He did it with PayPal. He now runs a business called Palantir, which is a multi-billion-dollar financial services business. I believe they have contracts for the government, data analysis, that kind of stuff. So he's a guy who started multi-billion-dollar businesses. So he's definitely someone to look to for product and innovation. Now, the next book is one of my favorite books in the world. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim by a guy called Michael Masterson. Now, Michael Masterson is actually a pen name for a guy called Mark Ford, and he was heavily involved in Agora Financial, which is a very famous direct response marketing business that probably mails the largest amount of direct response mailings in the world of any business, I would say. They're very, very consistent, have a lot of copywriters working for them. Now, in this book, what Michael or Mark does is he breaks down the segments of business growth. So he's got 0 to 7 figures, 7 figures to 8 figures, and 8 figures to 9 figures. That's in yearly income. So 0 to a million, 1 million to 10 million, and 10 million to 100 million in business growth. So for most people listening to this podcast, you will probably be below that 7-figure range. And this is really what I got out of it, because when I read that book about 6 years ago now, I was at that stage in my business. And what he says is that you really want to figure out, the number one thing to figure out when you're from 0 to 7 figures, what is your optimal selling solution? And he says the big mistake that people make is they make all of these crazy plans and things and has to be this way. This is what we're going to do for the product, X, Y, and Z. But what he's saying in the title of the book is ready, fire, and then aim. I love that philosophy because it's not about having the perfect shot. It's about being able to respond to the stimulus that's happening in and around your business, everything that's going on. It's those people who can respond who win. I see this almost every single day. This is what differentiates someone who can scale a business from someone who is just too into the ideas and not really making any traction. It's your ability to respond to the moment and your ability to be present in the moment. It's not about failure or success, it's about feedback. And it has been said that there is no failure, there is only feedback. And I love that perspective. I teach this to all of my clients. I really just try and embed this principle. They're always saying, Ben, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I always say, what does the market think? Have you pushed that out there? Have you tested it? What are the stats? Because the market knows the truth. I don't know the truth. I have good assumptions based on the tests that I've run before. But even when you're asking me, you should ask me what I think about the numbers. You see, this is the ready, fire, aim philosophy. And if you run that in your business, I can guarantee you, you'll scale much more effectively. Next one, Influence the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. This is perhaps one of the most important books when it comes to sales and how to really understand what is sales? How do people get persuaded to do something? So in his book, Cialdini has the 6 powers of persuasion. Now, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I may forget 1 or 2 of them, which is a lesson in and of itself for me. But off the top of my head, I think they are reciprocity, which is giving things of value in exchange for value. Number 1. Number 2 is liking. Do people like you? Number 3 is social proof. So is there evidence of this happening in the world? Obviously, social proof is huge in business. Then you have authority. So authority is people in positions of authority. Now, the book specifically, it's all based on evidence and tests and studies from social psychology. So it's applied social psychology to business. So these aren't things that some salesperson just made up. This person is a legitimate scientist, and that's really where the value comes in the book, because you get all these amazing stories and anecdotes and studies that people have done. It's quite profound. Okay, so we've got 4 so far: reciprocity, social proof, liking. We also have urgency and scarcity. So urgency and scarcity are ones that you want to be really careful with using because they're very fear-based. So you only want to use them when it's authentic and when it's true. You know, if you have 100 copies of your ebook on your page and you say, look, I've only got 100 copies of this ebook, you're going to lose a lot more than you gain by the benefit of scarcity. So you want to make sure that you use it appropriately and in the right context. Now, as I've set myself up to, I seem to have forgotten the last one: reciprocity, urgency, scarcity, social proof, authority, liking. I can't remember the other one. There is one more, and it is important. It's not important right now, but I'm telling you, it's important. So that's more encouragement to go and read the book. So next one is positioning by Ries. So positioning is super important. It's something that I believe 99.9% of people in the marketplace suck at, because positioning is how are you different from everyone else? How are you positioning yourself as the leader in your marketplace? You see, what most people do in the marketplace is they've got 2 eyes on their competitors. And I think this is a really bad way of doing things. This is what I used to do. I used to be on everyone's email list. I used to be engaged in podcasts and Facebook groups and all of that kind of stuff. And I got to the point in my business where I realized that I only needed to follow 1 or 2 people that I really, really trusted. And that was it. I followed them more from I was wanting to engage and learn from them as opposed to copy them. And most of the studies that I do are actually outside of business for that reason, because 0 to 1, I want to bring philosophy, real philosophy, to the lives of business owners. And I believe it's something unique that what I can bring is this very deep knowledge of sacred geometry and philosophy and how that's evolved through time and wisdom, and apply that to business in a unique way. And no one can really touch me on those topics in business because I study that stuff so intensely every single day for hours every single day. And I'm, I guess, many chapters ahead of people in that certain way. You see, if someone was to try and copy my approach, it would be really difficult for them because it's unlikely that they've done that work. So this is where the really interesting thing comes around on positioning. You want to own your uniqueness, own the things that are incredibly unique to you, and share those with the marketplace. And what you'll find is you build your blue ocean where you'll have your community of people who know, like, and trust your brand. And look, positioning is so powerful. I think it's done really not well in the marketplace whatsoever, but it's something you really want to understand. The next book is from one of my favorite authors, a man called Dan Kennedy. It's called No BS: Sales Success in the New Economy. What I love about this book is Dan Kennedy is an old hat direct response marketing guy who is perhaps taught more millionaires than anyone else. He's very old now, and he's perhaps even retired, I think. And I think I heard he almost died recently because he had some complications. But he writes in his book about building an inbound sales system. And I think this is super important to understand. What is the difference between an inbound system and an outbound system? How does it work? He essentially says that great marketing will make sales superfluous, and sales will be easy if you have good marketing and there is a interrelationship. Those 2 parties are married, and if they're married well and they have a good relationship, your business will scale much easier, much more effectively, and you'll get in flow. You'll get in rhythm. Things will be much smoother for you. So really important to understand. Again, I'll bring it back to these first 5 books. We've had 1 book that's about product and innovation, 0 to 1, 4 books on sales. So positioning, influence, we've got No BS: Sales Success, and Ready, Fire, Aim. They all really just hammer in the same message, focused on, okay, how are you selling yourself? How are you presenting yourself to the marketplace? I've intentionally put this forth because every single day I see people who are amazing at their craft, who are so good at delivering their product and service. They are masters of doing that, but they lacking the sales piece. They do not understand how to actually bring people in. And you see, to scale your business to 7 figures, I believe it's almost essential to understand sales. There are some ways around it, but I wouldn't suggest them. They're either too labor intensive or too expensive, or they present a series of other issues. So really, to get your business to where it needs to be, you got to master sales. Now, the next one is marketing. So we're going to think about lead generation. So at this stage, we understand product and that we should do things that are new and unique. And instead of doing linear improvements based on your marketplace, you want to think about how can I create a new market? Really, really good way to think. I think even if you are doing something similar to someone else, that level of thinking will really serve you. Now you're mastering sales. So now you're selling your product and service to the marketplace, to people. The next thing is, okay, we need more leads. So 2 books here. The first one is another one from Michael Masterson called Great Leads. This book breaks down and distills a principle that is actually from another book called Breakthrough Advertising by a man called Eugene Schwartz. And in that book, Eugene said that there are 5 levels of buyer awareness: unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and price aware, or most aware. And what he said is that depending on where people are, you want to match your message to that person and then move them to the next stage. That is one of the most profound things I've personally learned about marketing. When I learned that and integrated it and actually got that, marketing was easy for me because I had a system. For many people, marketing is subtle, it's esoteric, it's, oh God, how am I doing this? But really, when you know that, it's super easy to move people through. So this book, Great Leads, is about how you actually write to those segments in your marketplace and move them into the next stages, which is very, very exciting. Really well written book. I love the way that Michael Masterson writes. He spouts some serious truth when it comes to business, and he's definitely someone that you want to be reading. Next one is called The Copywriter's Handbook by Joseph Sugarman. So Joseph Sugarman is another direct response marketing guy. I believe he invented the blue light blockers, I believe. And he sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of those glasses quite a while ago. And I'm not sure if he's still functioning today, but he probably is in some format. Now, this is a tricky one, the title, because it's the copywriter. Now, writer is typically spelled W-R-I-T-E-R-S. In this context, it's spelled with an R. So it's a bit of a pun, play on words. Copywriter, as in right, going right, not left. R-I-G-H-T-E-R-S. Hard book to find because I've been telling people about this book for many years. They go and buy all the copies and then it goes out of stock and it typically can't be found. I usually keep 3 or 4 copies in my library so that I can have them and give them to people when needed. But when I first started writing copy for my business, that book was next to me 100% of the time. And the reason is it has cues, little things to put in your sentences. It's very practical, little headlines, all of that kind of stuff. And it is really, really helpful when it comes to generating leads, writing copy that converts, and bringing new people into your ecosystem. So far, we've talked about product, we've talked about sales a lot, and we've talked about lead gen. Now, if you roll those 3 things, product, lead gen, sales, you will build a 6-figure business. I am certain of it. If you really, really understand that stuff. In my first 12 months of business that I started with my brother, I was really blessed to have some great mentors. They told me exactly that, and I committed to that path of learning. I read countless books in all of these areas. These are the 10 books that I'm giving you. These are 10 of the best. Like, this is the cream of the crop I'm giving you. I went through perhaps 100 books in each of these categories so that I could find, okay, what are the principles? Who are the people to follow? Everything. And I distilled it. And it's because of that that I made $100,000 in my first 12 months of business when I was about 20 years old. The next year after that, we cracked $80,000 per month in the business. And the reason is we just kept learning. We kept committing, and it was like an explosion of stimulus coming in, as you can imagine. 21 years old, I had no idea how to handle that or what I was doing, which led to some other problems. So next, it's all about leverage, and it's about understanding time and profit. I always say there's 3 levels to business. Level 1 is proof of concept, which is all about mindset and sales. Level 2 is leverage. It's all about lead generation and making sure you leverage your product delivery and you're not getting buried in the weeds. Level 3 is, okay, I've got momentum now. I can sell, I can deliver a product, and I can generate leads. So you can roll that little cycle. But the problem is, if you roll that cycle continuously, you will end up on a hamster wheel, and that hamster wheel will burn you out very, very quickly, and you will hate your business. You'll fall out of love with the reason you started it, and it creates a lot of disdain, resentment, issues, everything. So the next 3 books are designed to set up some boundaries and to give you some systems, team and operations and finance, which are the next pillars of business. So the first one is No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs by Dan Kennedy. I love this book primarily because Dan is like a grumpy old man, and he is very crazy with the way he manages his time, but I love it because I think he's spot on. He talks about not going for coffees and not having meetings, meaningless meetings, and he even went as far to install a fax machine in his office, and if anyone wanted to contact him, they had to send him a fax. And he said that it was the smartest thing he ever did for his business because people had to go to such effort to contact him. They only ever contacted him when they had something incredibly meaningful to say. And usually they would figure out their own issues and their own problems. Now, a little rule that I use around this, I have a 3-day reactivity rule in my business. I will not answer something that's urgent. My work in my business is not to focus on urgent issues. My work is to focus on long-term sustainable growth. And I don't want to jump back on the hamster wheel. So you have to actually set up that boundary and say, look, I'm not here to just play tennis with you, right? I am here to create something. And you cannot possibly create something if someone's throwing a tennis ball at you every 10 seconds. Does that make sense? You really have to set up that boundary. This book is very, very powerful for that. Things like cutting out time vampires from your life, cutting out people who are energy suckers, who just want to take, is just, drop the hammer on those people and get out of those arrangements and set your boundaries in the right way. And you'll find that you're much more productive. You've got more time as you scale. This is a leverage piece. You cannot possibly operate the same way through these 3 levels of business: proof of concept, leverage, more time, more profit. So how do you transition? You need to apply leverage, and this book's very, very good for that. Okay, so we're up to the 9th book now. This is one of my favorite books. Had a really big impact on me in the last 12 months because I've been running the philosophies for team meetings and managing my team, hiring a team, building values. It's called Traction by Gino Wickman. And this book is perhaps the best book I have read on operating a business from the inside. What do you do with your meeting pulse? What do you do with your KPIs? How do you communicate your vision to your team? How do you make sure that we're moving towards the vision? How to know when to hire people, when to fire people? All of this great stuff that is really, really hard and perhaps isn't really taught anywhere. People are just trying to work it out on the fly. A lot of that is in the book Traction. I loved it, had a massive impact, and I still run many of those philosophies today in my business. Now, the last one is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And I love this book because I hear the excuse every single day and every week, oh, when my business earns this amount of money, I'll start taking profit out. But essentially, Mike says the opposite, is that profit should come out of your business first and the expenses should come out last. So usually what happens is everyone gets to the end of the month and they've got more month left over than they have money, and they go, oh, shit, I need to now pull out money from my profit account or my savings or borrow money from someone and keep my expenses really, really high. But the reality is that's just setting yourself up for failure. You're going to resent the business. And what I find is if, for example, you make a $1,000 sale, the first thing that I personally do that I was taught from the book Profit First, and I've adapted it for my own business, I take money out and I put it into a profit account that doesn't get touched. That builds my net worth. And as a result, every single dollar that comes into the business is building my wealth, building my net worth. It's something I do not touch. And for me, it just feels so good to know that as my business grows, my personal wealth is growing. And those things are two different things. And it's really important to understand that because as a business owner, if you just constantly tie those two things together and you don't separate those two things, you might have a really good lifestyle because you're running all the expenses through your business. But what you're going to find is 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track, you haven't actually built any wealth. And it's going to come back to bite you in the ass in 10 years, 15 years. Now, I wish I did this when I first started my business, even if it was 10% of business income. At the moment, I'm up to 17.5% into a net profit account. And look, that moves me forward. That moves the dial. Allows me to look at investing in property and actually turning my business into an investment vehicle that's going to build a legacy beyond itself. These are really, really important things that no one really talks about, right? There's so many people out there just talking about, oh yes, just invest all your money in Facebook ads and blah, blah, blah. But really, what's the point of doing any of that if you're not actually building wealth and you're not actually becoming financially secure? Because I know for myself, this was one of the key reasons why I actually went into this in the first place. But I probably got sucked into this idea that, oh, now that I'm making 50 or 80 or $100,000 a month, now I need to live this lifestyle. Where in reality, I find it's really powerful to have a golden mean approach to lifestyle and wealth building. 50% of the income that I generate for the business, if I have, for example, 17.5% going into net profit, I'll aim to put 17.5% into my lifestyle account. And I can do whatever I want with that money, and I'm not ashamed at all as to what I do with it. Now, this is a really powerful way to think because you're really honoring lifestyle and you're honoring now and you're honoring the glutton inside of you, let's say. But then you're also, there's a good point actually I want to bring up. There's a guy called Osho. He was a spiritual leader and actually started this huge commune in the US. Massive, like huge. You may have seen the Netflix documentary, I can't remember what it's called, but Wild Wild Country is what it's called. And Osho is a great thinker. He was a truly profound guy. He was a polymath. Many people don't know that about Osho, but he read 25,000 books in his life. So he's a man of wisdom, very, very profound philosopher and many, many things. He talked about this concept of blending the East with the West, and he called it Zorba the Buddha. Because in the East, many people worship the Buddha. Now, the Buddha is the man of temperament. He's the man of meditation, the ultimate consciousness, just sitting very calm, very quiet, very contained, very internal, a real master of the internal world. But then you have a man called Zorba, and Zorba was a Greek, kind of like the Dionysian god in Greece. So he was the god of pleasure. He was the guy that was out there in the markets, playing around, drinking and partying and living all of that life. And what Osho said is that we should integrate and become Zorba the Buddha. And I love this perspective, particularly when it comes to finance, because what I've noticed is if you spend too much on being Zorba and lifestyle, let's say, you'll dig yourself a hole, and what you'll find is you start to resent that lifestyle and you resent the things that your business is getting. You'll feel like you're on this hamster wheel. Whereas if you go the other way and you're just really temperament, got to save 80% of the business, oh God, got to build wealth, you'll limit your lifestyle and you'll feel bored. You won't feel fulfilled. You'll be having no fun. It's a loss, But if you fall into the center and you operate through this Zorba the Buddha philosophy when it comes to finance, and look, this philosophy isn't just about finance. I think it's really a great way to live in many contexts, many, many areas. The Zorba the Buddha, the center path of integrating the masculine and feminine, let's say, the yin and yang, walking that tightrope, I believe is a really noble way to run your business, your finances, your sales, everything. So, look, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, something a little bit different today. Usually I'm talking about principles and things, and I have been able to embed those in certain other ways through the learnings and lessons of others, which is something that I love doing. My first mentor, Lachlan Cameron, he was the person who really allowed me to fall in love with the successes and failures of other people and learning from those. I think one thing we can all commit to is learning from others. Yes, experience is such an important thing. Again, back to this Zorba the Buddha. You've got Zorba, which is experience, but then you've got the Buddha, which is the successes and failures of others. And if you go through that center path and you own both sides of that, spend half your time grabbing knowledge and then half your time experiencing the fruits of that knowledge, planting trees and eating the fruit, what you'll find is you probably grow a lot more. You integrate different sides of your personality and you'll live a more fulfilled, larger life. So, hope you've enjoyed it. I will speak to you in the next episodes. I'm going to follow up with a specific, same thing, but for mindset and philosophy. I'm sure that I'll speak a little bit more about Osho during that piece because I really value his contributions. I think he's a huge genius in the world.